Hello again, I'm Matt and welcome to Matt on LAX. Once you see him, you immediately know who he is. If you've been lucky enough to watch him play, his performance was unforgettable. On the field, you knew his number, you heard his name, but you called him the Beast. You will learn that he loves the game of lacrosse so much so that he has a personal effect on the sport. He's been a key force in the evolution of the faceoff and the position at the stripe. He's an expert in many things, so vast and broad it's shocking. He's not just a pretty face, he's the real deal. I'm honored to welcome my friend, the legendary Gurenlian. Hi Greg, thanks for joining and welcome to the Matt Lab. Oh wait, Matt on LAX. Tell us, how did you start playing lacrosse?
I started playing lacrosse in high school, man. I picked up a stick for the first time right before my freshman year of high school. My best friend, one of my best friends, George Azar, convinced me to go out for the team. And that's when I first picked up a stick, was freshman year of high school.
Did you play any other sports?
Yeah, I started karate when I was 6. I did soccer, basketball, and baseball almost my whole life, including wrestling. I gave up wrestling when I got to high school. And then when I was a junior, I gave up basketball because lacrosse had taken over so much of my time that I wanted to focus on that.
When did lacrosse become your main sport?
Became my main sport, I would say, right after my sophomore year. My dad and my mom got a visit from one of the guys who helps out with the high school team. And he was just like, look, I'm just going to be honest with you. Greg's getting a lot of attention. He's doing a really good job. He should, if he could play in college if he was interested. So, I'm not telling you to stop playing any other sports, but I'm telling you this could be his ticket to playing, in a Division I school and playing at a good college. So that's when I first, I realized basketball was always my first love, but I realized, 6'1" was about as high as I was going to get. So if I wanted to play a sport in college, or if I wanted to go to Penn State, which was really my ultimate goal in life, that lacrosse was probably my ticket.
As a young player, what were your biggest challenges?
My biggest challenges playing in high school was, most people in Delaware County, Springfield, Pennsylvania, which is a hotbed, most kids start playing when they're in first or second grade. So picking up a stick in high school was very humbling. In fact, I almost quit after my freshman year. I was getting made fun of constantly. In fact, my nickname Beast came from getting made fun of my freshman year in lacrosse. I was a skinny kid trying to hit everybody. I didn't know how to catch and throw. So everybody would make fun of me, call me Beast on the sideline during games. And last practice of the year, I was going to tell the coaches that I appreciate everything, but I was gonna hang it up. And completely random, one of the assistant coaches, Rick Johnson, at the end of sprints, put his arm around me. He's like, I know this is a tough first year for you, but I promise if you stick with this sport, you'll light the world on fire. And I remember going back in my parents' car and telling them there's just no way I could quit now. This guy believes in me. And if he had never done that, there's a really good chance you and I would never have this conversation.
Was there a moment when you realized that you were good at the game?
Yes. My junior year, I got called up to varsity to be the backup faceoff guy. And in the first game of the season, our senior long pole, who was the faceoff guy at the time, he ended up going to UPenn. He got hurt. So I came into the game and faced off varsity for the first time. And I went like 8 for 9 or something. And then the next game, I kept going. And then I was my junior year, like 2 or 3 games in, I was like, okay, yeah, I'm good at this. So that was the experience for me.
You were recruited by Coach Lars Tiffany to play for Penn State as a midfielder. What was your time at Penn State like?
Epic. It was the best. It was exactly the way I'd always imagined it. I knew very little about lacrosse by the time I committed to play lacrosse at Penn State. I knew nothing about the lacrosse team. I knew nothing about their program. I would go up to Penn State's youth lacrosse camp, even as a actual recruited player. I went up because I wanted to be around the school and I wanted to be around the team. And it was my dream school because most of my father's side of the family went to Penn State. So I've been going up to Penn State football games since I was like 8 years old. And it was my number one goal in life was to end up going to Penn State. So I actually chose a school rather than a lacrosse program. And when I got there, I learned a lot about lacrosse and I had a phenomenal time. I got a degree in kinesiology. Penn State's one of the best kinesiology programs in the country. I just went back 2 years ago to speak at the alumni weekend. And in that talk, I was talking about how my wife, my career, most of the things that I have going on in my life were directly correlated to Penn State. So, it was exactly what I dreamed it would be.
At Penn State, you studied to be a strength trainer. Did you plan for this to be your career?
I did. I fully dedicated myself to strength and conditioning. I would, you know, I would skip out on classes that didn't have anything to do with my major, like, art classes, so that I could go and ask my strength coach about nutrition. I would pick his brain about neuroanatomy. I loved it. And when I graduated, he hired me as an assistant strength coach for men's and women's basketball. And then after a year, I decided to take my talent to New York and just try it in the private sector, where I built my first strength and conditioning business, Brawlic Strength. And now I'm starting to come full circle around now, after doing Faceoff Academy for all these years, to incorporate that strength training knowledge into faceoffs.
When did you develop your understanding of how to master the art of the faceoff?
It's interesting, Matt. Most of the things that I've ever done in my life, I have decided that I believe very much, if you're going to do something, you do it as hard as you can, as hard and as best you can. The funny thing about lacrosse was my secondary thought. It always was. I wanted to be a strength coach, and I was building my business when I got drafted. And when I was playing lacrosse, I blew my knee out in 2011. And I'd always been like a 55% face-off guy in the pros. I'd have ups and downs. And I realized when I blew my knee out how much it meant to me to play lacrosse. I realized that I had taken my athletic talent for granted. I was never a student of face-offs. I was a midfielder. I played man up. I played offensive midfield when I was at Penn State. So being a face-off guy only when I got to the pros was weird, because face-off specialist was not a thing I'd ever done. So I think I took it for granted being an athlete. So when I blew my knee out, it was the first time in my life I really sat down and I wrote the Faceoff Academy system that summer. I applied my knowledge of biomechanics to the faceoff position. Before then, if you look at any YouTube videos on faceoffs before 2012, it was a mix of guys teaching cheating and everybody just doing random different stances. Fast forward 5 years later, if you look at the film that showed up in the last 10 years, everyone has similar stances. Everybody copied the Faceoff Academy system because it was all biomechanically correct. So when I came back in 2012 from my knee injury, I had a career year, and 2013, and every year it got better and better. And it was all because I had applied what I knew in college and what I had learned as a strength coach to the faceoff position.
From Penn State, you were drafted to the MLO, where you set many records. Tell us what that time was like for you.
I hit my stride in the pros, because most guys start playing younger. I was still young and hungry as a lacrosse player when I was through college and into the pros. I was still getting better when I was in the pros. Most guys kind of reach their limit when they're in college, and they hope that that's high enough to keep them going in the pros. For me, I was accelerating. I was much better professional lacrosse player than I was a college and high school player. And the reason behind that, a lot of times you'll see in the pros, guys will have talent that is kind of gets a little bit hindered based on maybe their coach won't let them do a certain thing on offense, but then they get to the pros and that thing makes them a star. I was a guy who never had to be, no one needed to yell at me to get me going. I always needed to be held back a little bit. So when I was in the pros, I treated it like a professional athlete. Regardless of how little I was being paid, I didn't look at it any less than any NFL player would look at his career, the way he trains. So I trained hard. And I think, because of that mixture of things, I had a very successful professional career that I'm grateful for.
How do you feel after winning the 2015 MLL MVP award?
That was important for one reason, and I think it helped justify how important the face-off position is. I think between me doing that and Trevor doing what he did at the same time, Trevor Baptiste, I think the two of us accelerated the position and made people have a lot of respect for it, which was the ultimate reason we started the Faceoff Academy in the first place. The FOA started as a side gig for me and Jerry and Chris because we already had jobs, but we were sick of people only teaching cheating and face-offs. We wanted people to respect us. And we were teetering for a decent amount of time there on then taking face-offs back out of the game. And, I didn't want that to happen. So, I think that legitimized the importance of the position. And it was good to get a little bit of respect, especially when most of the time face-off guys have to explain why we should exist. So it meant a lot to me for the position, for sure.
During your time in the MLL, you had some injuries. How do you overcome those stepbacks?
Injuries are tough, man, because they always happen at the worst time. You never tear your rotator cuff at a convenient moment. And I don't know if it's just bad luck or what, but through my career, injuries had always happened, or even just illnesses. I blew my knee out in 2011. I had my right shoulder. I actually in 2014 for the World Games, I actually decommitted from the World Games because my shoulder was in such bad shape. And then they asked me to come back right before the World Games. So I got cortisone shots done so that I could play. I went out and I set a USA record, but then for the next 2 or 3 weeks, I felt like my arm was hanging out of my socket. So I got surgery on that. Then 2 years later, I had a bone removed from my foot because it was in pieces. I pushed my body beyond where it should be. And there's a lot of times where I felt like I shouldn't play because I was in so much bad shape, but certain folks would guilt trip me, or, I didn't want to let my team down. The typical pitfalls. In fact, my very last trip to the World Games in 2020, when we won 2018, I'm sorry, when we won the gold medal in Israel, I actually had 104-degree fever on the plane ride there. I had an upper respiratory infection. I didn't eat for the first 3 days I was there. So this stuff just follows me around, man. And that's why in 2019, I decided to hang it up from the Redwoods, because I spent time, with a torn hamstring that summer. So at some point when you go hard all the time, your body can't hold up. So I think if I had one limitation to myself, it was I didn't know when to stop throughout my career. But like I said, if that injury, that 2011 injury with my knee never happened, there's a good chance I never would have reached my potential. So you got to take the good with the bad.
In 2018, you returned from a gold medal with the Team USA at the World Games, and then you joined the PLL. What led you to decide to go back to the pro game?
My wife and I had a very good conversation in 2016 when we were looking at having kids. And, our decision was, if we're going to have a baby, I can't keep traveling the way I was. Because at that time, not only was I playing in the summer, but Faceoff Academy was on full go. And I was leaving home 2 or 3 weekends a month. And you just can't do that year round and have kids. And so we made a decision. Do you want to play one more year in the pros, or 2 more years in the pros, or do you want to play 1 year in the pros and try to go for Team USA one time? And I was going to do 2 years in the pro. And then I went down to Florida one time with the new coaching staff, which was Panowski and Amplo and those guys. And I figured it would be my last time playing with Team USA in a scrimmage. And after I came home, I was like, I love these guys. I really want to play for them. I think I could do this one more time. So the Lizards sent me out in a beautiful way in 2017. They were great to me. And I thought that was that. And then right after the World Games, Tommy Schreiber called me, told me about the league that everyone was kind of mumbling about, asked if I could help them with the face-off rules. So I got busy on helping them with their face-off rules. And then he called me back and said, "Would you want to play?" And then I mentioned it to my wife, and contract started talking. And then the decision honestly was, I felt like I still had some gas in the tank, but I also wanted to, I was worried when the MLL closed. I knew the ML was going to close once the PL started, that everything I'd done would be forgotten. So selfishly, I wanted to be part of whatever was new and give it one more year just so I could be around it before I completely hung it up. And thankfully, my wife understood that and allowed me to do it.
You were the co-founder of the Faceoff Academy. How did that get started?
Chris Mattis, Jerry Raganese, and myself all had jobs. We'd all become friends because we were face-off guys. And at one point, I actually coached Jerry Raganese when he was at RIT. And we decided one day, Jerry and Chris had run a bunch of other people's face-off things, and they hated the way it was run because all they did was teach cheating. There was guys online teaching cheating. Everybody who's ever taught me anything about face-offs before I became a pro, it was always some kind of cheat move, and it drove me nuts. So I told Chris and Jerry, I was like, why don't we do a quick summer tour. As a trainer in New York City, most of my clients were going out east during the summer. So I could use the extra income and we could teach these kids how to do this the right way. So we made 6 tour stops. The first one was in Delray Beach, Florida. And after we made those 6 tour stops, our phones would not stop ringing. People were begging us to come back. So we started doing more. Then we decided to start doing weekly stuff where we lived, called them draw days. Next thing you know, it's becoming a full-time job. And we tried the first national showcase, which was a huge hit. So that's where it kind of all took off. And then we trained Trevor and Ben Williams, and all the guys we were training were suddenly all Americans. And even more importantly, the people who were teaching the cheating before us hated us. So we knew we were onto something. And that's when I sold Brawlix Strength and I dedicated 24/7 to the Faceoff Academy.
How has the position of faceoff specialist changed since you started as a player?
I mean, there was no faceoff specialist probably until 2006 is probably when you would first start hearing about it. Fogo, guy who faces off and runs off the field. It was kind of a new thing. There were a few guys in college that were doing it when I was there. I would still play man up. I'd still play middies here and there. But the writing was kind of on the wall. Paul Cannabine in the pros in the MLL is the one who really made people notice the face-off specific position. And he was the only guy that I really noticed. Him and Chris Searcy were the guys I noticed when I was coming up. And when I got to the pros, I realized, wow, you have to only face off, because in the pros, you're score. Back then, there was only 3 long poles on the field at a time. You weren't allowed to have 4 in the pros. So in Major League Lacrosse, you're looking at least 30 goals a game that you're facing off. So you can't possibly take that many draws and still be able to, have the energy to play midi. So it started becoming more prevalent. And then in college, it started becoming more prevalent because people started saying, wow, like people are teaching this now. And then when the FOA came out, that's when you saw this big jump. You see how many records were being broken after FOA in 2012. It's because the guys, it was literally the haves and have-nots. You've either been formally trained and the biomechanics of this, or you haven't. You're really behind the 8 ball. Now we're training thousands of kids. So pretty much, like I've said before, every Division I program in the entire country right now has at least one guy that we've trained. So the arms race is very continual now.
How has the changes in the face-off rules forced you to change your program?
It's a great question. And, adaptation is the number one indicator of success for a professional level face-off man. The rules have been changing every couple of years since I was a junior. When I was a senior in college, I remember we came back after fall break and Coach Van Arsdale was like, hey, they're taking a set call out this year. So there's no set call. When you go down, your gloves touch, you're just going to blow the whistle. And back then there wasn't Twitter or Instagram for us to cry and whine about it. We were like, okay, and we'll just figure this out and do that. That was the first time I faced off on a name because I realized it was faster for me to get my gloves to the ground instead of having to bend over. And that's adaptation. And every couple of years when I was in the MLL, the referees would do it differently. They put the ball down a different way. There were rule changes every single year. And, I've always been of the mind of no one's going to listen to you if you complain about it. You might as well learn it quicker than everybody else. If we're going to be honest, like from a business standpoint, every time the rules change, it's only good for face-off business because most people complain on Instagram about it. Meanwhile, the FOA gets to work. We redevelop the system because the system is not based on moves. The system's based on biomechanics. So for instance, when they changed the rules this last time around to standing neutral grip only, the rules committee itself used the term that we coined in 2012. We started calling it standing neutral grip. Before that, it was called traditional grip. And we knew we were onto it. Like when they started using our terminology, we knew we were going to be the first to this thing, but we just apply biomechanics. Here's what we're going to do, guys. Here's how we're going to rewrite it based on the rules. No big deal. So we're super malleable because it's always going to be based on science for us.
Is it difficult to teach face-offs when the rules keep changing?
It's difficult to teach officials when the rules keep changing. And I just did a webinar last night with USA Lacrosse for almost 200 officials that signed on to explain to them how to make their lives easier. because these poor guys, you have a group of 8 people in college that are the rules committee. None of them have ever faced off. They come up with a rule change that they think might, I'm sure they all believe that it's better for the game, whatever they decide, but it's the human error of they all also have something to gain from the rules being called a certain way based on their teams. Then they make rules. They write them very vaguely because they don't really know the position. So they come up with a list of things. That then goes to the officials. So then the head of officials looks at it and then interprets it a way that he wants to. He's also never faced off. Then he tells all the officials in the NCAA, this is how we should do it. None of them have faced off. So by the time it gets down to us, we're the only ones who, the kids are the ones who have to deal with the brunt. The kids are the ones who have to keep changing. The kids are the ones who keep paying for lessons, changing what they're doing, buying new sticks. Meanwhile, the coaches and the refs are just kind of doing their own thing. Now, most referees need time to figure this out. It's a whole new mechanic, how they're going to call it, et cetera. So what part of my job now and the crusade for the FOA the last couple of years has been educating the officials, get them caught up on the new rules, teach them how to make the face-off more black and white so that there's not all this gray area. So it's more consistent because our sport, everybody who watches, like Matt, if you watch football, you know what a hold is, right? If you watch hockey, you know what a hooking penalty is. I want everybody watching face-offs to know exactly what a defensive exit is or what an illegal counter looks like. Like I want it to be commonplace, but it won't get there if every ref, when someone turns on TV, is calling it a different way.
Do you think there will be more rule changes upcoming?
I hope not, but no one listens to me, Matt. So, I think that the rules are fine the way they are. I think they're great, and I always give credit where it's due. I think 2014 when they said you can't carry the ball in the back of the stick, even though I totally weaponized that as a player, I thought it was a great idea. I think getting rid of moto is going to be better for all these kids, health wise. I'm going to be dealing with the pain of knee down face-offs the rest of my life. But I think the rules are fine now. All they got to do is have the officials get caught up on it. And if anything, they can bring the wings in maybe 1 yard on each side if they really wanted it to be a 3-on-3 face-off. But that's the only thing you got to do at this point, in my opinion.
When should face-off players start working on wing plays?
As soon as they have the technical skill set down of having all the layers. So we call the layers. There's 6 offensive moves on face-offs. 3 are bottom sidewall, 3 are top sidewall. Once you have dialed in those technically, that's when you are prepared to move your wings and you have earned the trust. If you don't really know how to clamp and plunger yet, then you don't have to worry about wing play yet.
Do you feel the Faceoff Academy help end cheating at the face-off?
Well, I would love to say we totally ended it, but I think we really reduced it. And I do think I will absolutely take some of the credit for that. I think the Faceoff Academy was the first group of people. We're still the only group of people that go out there and vehemently deny guys from being able to cheat. We are harsh on our athletes about it, doing it the right way. But that also comes with the rules committee. Being strict about guys having their hands off the plastic makes it a lot harder for them to grab the ball with their hand and get away with it. Changing the tape color rules made it easier for guys. So some guys would actually teach kids to tape the ends of their gloves white so the ref can't tell you're grabbing the ball. So I think between the rules committee, USA Lacrosse, and ourselves, I think we've all done a very good job.
What are up-and-coming face-off players doing right?
Up-and-coming face-off guys that are doing it right are the same kind of people that do anything right. They are willing to learn. And I tell my guys, I'm an expert in face-offs. I'm still learning, though. I'm still looking for reasons why I shouldn't be an expert, if that makes any sense. I don't think you can be an expert in something and not continue to learn, because then I don't think you're a true expert. You can't possibly know everything if you're not trying to continue to learn. So the kids that are being taught and are willing to listen and understand, they're the special ones. Trevor, Ben Williams, Jake Withers, these were guys who, when you find somebody, regardless of sport or regardless of anything, that has a natural given talent, but is also really hungry to learn, that's when you find the special ones. And, Jake Fopp at Syracuse is a perfect example. Justin Anasio at Ohio State, Zach Tucci at UNC right now. Like, these are guys that Tommy Burke is another beautiful example. Guys who have so much talent, but they're constantly reaching out. How can I get better? What am I doing wrong? What can I do better? So that's where you get it.
What are they doing wrong?
Well, a lot of guys will move their feet back. So when you look at knee down faceoffs and standing neutral grip faceoffs, biomechanically, they're completely opposite. And knee down faceoffs was about rotating around your opponent, putting your knee, we called it dominating the column, getting over the top, getting leverage, and rotating hard around your opponent. But now the ball is in the middle of the heads, and you hold the stick like this, which means you can pronate and you can supinate. So you don't have to just come over the top. You can connect and then roll your wrist and steal the bottom sidewall. Knee down was all about top sidewall. Standing neutral grip is all about the bottom sidewall. And you still see guys that have a knee down mentality, either because they think that's the way they should face off, or there's people out there charging them and teaching them the complete wrong way. So when guys make impact, which is when the sticks meet, some guys want to kick their legs back and then push harder. But when you're pushing horizontally, you're pushing the ball to your opponent, not taking it from him. So getting guys to keep their feet planted and understand that this face-off should not be a lockup contest anymore. It should be one move. Your array of moves is more important than your hand speed. Picking the right move at the right time against the right person. It's way more about chess now.
What is it like to go from a player to a coach?
Pretty seamless, to be honest. I think I was a pretty good face-off guy. I think I'm a much better coach. I think my experience with my major at school, as well as taking some psych courses and some coaching courses, I just have a knack for conveying stuff to people when it comes to learning. And I love to teach. I love helping people reach their potential. Regardless of what you do in life, I experienced what it was like to choose something and reach your personal potential. I know that I couldn't have been any better than I was at what I did. Has nothing to do with being better than anybody else. It's just I knew I reached my potential. It's such a special feeling, and I want every kid that I ever meet to feel that. And I think that I'm a better coach than I was a player.
In your opinion, what makes a good coach?
I think a good coach is somebody who, one, is an expert and doesn't pretend not to be in what they're talking. Like, I will never give you financial advice, Matt. Okay. I will never try to teach you chess, and I really don't know anything about how my car works. Okay. But I'm an expert when it comes to strength and conditioning and when it comes to face-offs. And those things are my lane. Those are the things I teach. So when you're teaching somebody something, you should know just about everything there is to know about it. But also, like I said earlier, you're somebody who's willing to learn. Not just like if I was teaching you face-offs, I wouldn't just be trying to learn what moves you like. I would be trying to learn what your experiences were. Well, why don't you like doing the things that I'm teaching? What is it that makes it uncomfortable? Maybe there's an issue with your hamstrings or whatever. Getting feedback from people is the best part. But also, I learned this from being a father. Not coming down, speaking at someone from above to below, speaking at someone directly across, coming down to your level and trying to experience what you're experiencing, because everybody learns differently. Some guys, you got to get on them. Some guys, you got to make sure that they understand that, that you shouldn't want it more than they should. And I think that goes as a parent or as a coach. If I ever feel like I want it more than my kid's not doing that thing anymore, because I need to back off. So same thing with coaching. You have to learn when to push, when to pull back. And then sometimes you just got to let people fail. And that happens a lot. Guys you'll teach them, they'll get really good. They'll commit to college. Then they'll slack off because they think they know it all. Then they don't listen to you when you give them some feedback. Then 2 years later, when they get absolutely destroyed on ESPN, you get your phone call. Okay, I'm ready to listen. And you just have to be willing to let some of your guys fail, which is tough as a father or as a coach sometimes.
What makes a good player?
Oh, man, it could be anything. I mean, anything can make a good player. Talent makes a good player. A willingness to be coached makes a good player. Somebody who practices a lot makes a good player. Someone who's just a great teammate makes a good player. A great player is somebody who puts in a combination of those things and does more than what's expected of them. And that's not for everybody. Some people want to be great players. Some people want to be good players. Some people want to be the absolute best players. I've always said that it doesn't matter to me what you want to be, but you have to understand the level of what you need to put into it in order to get the level that you want. So if you want to be an elite player, but you're not putting in the work, you're not allowed to complain. If you don't want to be, if you just want to like play on a team because you want friends, that's totally awesome. That's great. But that's the level that you're expected to train at. So yeah, good players need one good thing. I think great players need a combination of things.
What makes a good teammate?
Somebody who legitimately enjoys being around the team. It doesn't have to be somebody who's completely selfless. It doesn't have to be somebody who, puts everybody else before them. I believe, in my experience, somebody who genuinely enjoys being around their team tends to be the best teammates. What comes with that is humility. What comes with that a lot of times is not being afraid to be held accountable, but also being willing to hold other people accountable. I think there's a difference between a great teammate and a mascot. A mascot is someone who just never wants to say anything bad, is just there to have a good time, is there to be a positive influence. That's great. But being a great teammate means if I'm doing something dumb out there, I need you to tell me. And then I need to be able to receive that information. And I think, I've had the experience of being with some great teammates. I will say right now, my career would not have been anything like it could have been if it wasn't for Jerry Raganese. He was with me with the Lizards. He was with me with the Redwoods. He was always helping me in practice, and he was always there on game day. He would, even if he didn't dress, he would just come stand on the sideline and help me after every faceoff. So there are some really special teammates that I've had the luxury of having.
What is the most important skill for a young player to work on or develop?
Well, that depends on the position. I will say this from a lacrosse standpoint, and you've heard this before. The only thing that really matters is, can you throw and catch? And can you throw and catch while running? And that, if everybody said wall ball. Okay, wall ball. No, seriously, wall ball. Catching and throwing left and right-handed. And I always, when I first started playing, because I was so far behind, some people are like, oh, what's your strong hand? I'm like, I suck at both hands. So I would catch and switch my hands every time. Every single time I called a pass, I would switch my hands. But catching and throwing and being able to do it while moving is really the limiting factor to how good you can be as a faceoff guy. If you can catch and throw with both hands, and you can put the ball where it needs to be, and you can catch it when it's around you, you can be a lacrosse player. That's what's great about this sport.
How important is the mental game in the development of a young athlete?
I mean, the development of, the mental game is everything. Developing the maturity, dealing with not being successful is the most important thing a young athlete can comprehend. I think face-offs, the reason I like training my guys with face-offs every week, and we have these elite sessions. The reason I have the elite sessions is I'll put my helmet on. I'll take live reps with some of the best high school and college guys, because I'm still at an age where I can beat them most of the time. And I want them to understand what it feels like to lose face-offs, because a lot of these guys will win 90% in their high school career. When they get to college, they go 50% and they collapse. And you have to learn how to absorb adversity and then become analytical, not emotional about it. Something bad happened. How can I stop that thing from happening again? What was the thing? And then what do I need to do to correct it? That is the biggest thing that an athlete needs to be able to comprehend.
What motivates you today as you continue to coach and play?
I don't know where the fire came from. My dad said that when I was younger. I've always had this competitive fire. Whatever I was doing, I wanted to do it well. It didn't matter if it was cutting the grass or playing lacrosse. But for me right now, my motivation is to be successful in what I do in my career, so I can be around my family more often, and watch my boys grow up, be available for them. But also, I have a duty with this Faceoff Academy to do right by all the kids that come into it. So I want to help the guys that we hire, because we only hire guys that we've coached. So every FOA coach has been coached by us at some point. I want them to have a successful business as professional face-off coaches. And I want to do right by the kids who work with me. But I think the thing that drives me the most is every morning I wake up thinking that I have to set an example. I'm retired, but I very highly doubt there's any pro lacrosse players that outwork my training right now, because I wake up every day like I'm still playing. So I attack each day as if it's trying to be taken from me. And I'll be like that until the day that I'm done doing everything, which, hopefully won't be for a long time.
What do you know about lacrosse now that you wish you knew when you were younger?
It's a very small community. It's a shockingly small community. And if you need something as a lacrosse player, you're always 1 or 2 degrees away from finding people. Look at our conversation right now. I love how small our sport still is and how much access that we had to fans and people that are, youth players and coaches. So I love the fact that anybody can probably get on the phone or find an email pretty quickly that will lead you to the place you want to go to get help from somebody. And usually the lacrosse fraternity is always willing to help each other out. So it doesn't matter where you played, where you're from, but you say, oh, you play lacrosse? I play lacrosse. That's usually our common denominator. That's our connection.
Greg, I'm not sure you know this, but we have a few things in common. 1, we both love Penn State. 2, we both wore the number 25. 3, we both had the same birthday. And 4, we both spend quality time in the gym.
Wait a minute. Your birthday's March 23rd?
2010.
Get out of here. Nice, man. Nice. That's a great birthday to have.
Yeah. At what age should a young athlete begin to work out?
That depends on what they want to do, but I think you're never too young to start calisthenics and dealing with your body in space, proprioception. My son, both my sons, when they're around 6 years old, like Jax does calisthenic stuff with me in the garage already. When they turn 6, I'll start to introduce some other stuff to them, but I'm not going to introduce weights until their movement patterns are perfect. So if you're asking about when should you hit the weights, for instance, you shouldn't be doing bench press unless you can do perfect push-ups. You shouldn't be loading any bar on your back for a squat unless you have a perfect biomechanical squat. So biomechanics are all based on, you doing the movements correctly. Once you can do all these movements correctly and you have a good feel for your body in space, you can introduce the weights, but it all depends on that, not on your age.
You recently launched the official Beast Lab. Tell us about the project.
So the official Beast Lab is a 2-part project. The OBL itself is a community of knowledgeable strength coaches and athletes that want to motivate and help people. So our Instagram, our Twitter, and our YouTube channel is a combination of bringing in. If you go to the youtube.com/Greg Gurenlian, that playlist, the Beast Lab playlist, will have VODs of me interviewing athletes, strength coaches, nutritionists, mindfulness experts, etc. We'll be releasing 2 conversations a month. Then there's a playlist, the OBL Movement Index, and that is just professionals doing perfect form of almost any exercise you can think of without all the extra 3 minutes of talking beforehand or come subscribe to this or any of that stuff. It's just the video so you can see perfect form. Then we have those professionals dropping knowledge, what we call them the movement keys. So the 3 perfect keys to a proper kettlebell swing or a push press, et cetera. The idea behind it was to create a platform and an athlete hub where people like yourself could go and say, okay, I want to learn how to do stuff. I want to only see the people who are really knowledgeable and know how to do it. Not the fitness Instagram world of just post, shirtless pictures of yourself, but the people who really know how to help athletes and knowledge that'll help you. The second part of it, called the FO Athlete Performance. And FO Athlete Performance is going to be a combination of remote strength and conditioning programming, mobility, face-off coaching, and personal mentorship through me. I will take on, you have to apply. There will be a small group selected, and those people would be paying a subscription service to have access to me pretty much 24/7, to be their strength coach, to be their face-off coach and their mentor. They would also get access to my network of nutritionists, mindfulness experts, etc.
Along with Jerry Ragadis, you present each year at LAXCon. What is the experience like for you?
Being with Jerry?
Just being at LAXCon in general.
Oh, just being at LAXCon. Oh, yeah, man. I mean, I love LAXCon. We've gone every year for the last decade. One, I get to help coach up face-offs. I get to talk to officials. I get to feel the pulse of the sport. But even more so, I just get to be around the fans, which is my favorite part. And that's the part that I'll miss the most when it's all said and done. From playing that is definitely the thing I miss the most, is being around the fans.
What other hobbies do you enjoy outside of lacrosse?
I'm not, I don't have a lot of hobbies that are outside of what I do for a living. Because it's funny, I do my hobbies for a living. I kind of live the dream with that. I love the face-off game. I love watching lacrosse. Strength and conditioning is my huge passion. So I love to work out. I love to teach my friends about it, etc. But I do have a very big nerd side. I'm a very big comic book nerd. I love science fiction books. So I love reading Warhammer. And I enjoy video games. So those are like my nerd things that my kids are probably going to get from me.
You're my dad's favorite online dad. Your videos with your sons are always great. Do you think they'll play lacrosse?
Well, I appreciate that. I don't know. I know Jax likes it. People ask me all the time how, what's Jax going to do? And I couldn't care less what he decides to do. If he wants to play lacrosse, he can play lacrosse. If he wants to be a ballerina, he can be a ballerina. As long as he enjoys it and has a great time and has passion for something, that's beautiful. If he does play lacrosse, I will try to be as hands-off as possible. I want no part of coaching him. I don't want to coach his team. I just want to sit back and watch him play and have a great time. So we'll see. But I do love the fact that he enjoys having a catch with me in the backyard. It is a cool bonding thing.
Now we have a question for a young fan. Here's Ryder.
Hey Greg, I play a lot of sports like basketball, football, and baseball. What age do you think I should start focusing on lacrosse?
That's a great question, Ryder. It all depends, man. It depends on how serious you think you want to be with it. I chose late in my high school career to give up basketball, which was my favorite sport up until then, because I thought that taking that winter to focus on strength and conditioning and playing indoor would help me. We have a little bit of a paradox, because every college coach will say that they like multi-sport athletes, but also every coach will also they'll go to your fall ball games, they'll go to your summer games, they'll go to your spring games. They will have their own prospect camps in the winter. So coaches will say that, but then they expect you to play year round. So it's really hard. I think at the end of the day, you have to decide what you see yourself doing in the future. And I tell my Faceoff Academy guys this all the time. The point of you playing lacrosse is not to get to college. The point of you going to lacrosse, playing lacrosse, is to have fun. And if it helps you get to the school that you need to go to in order to get a great job one day, great. It shouldn't be your ticket to just go to college. That's what your grades are for. So I think, Ryder, what you have to decide on is there a sport that you like the least that you're willing to give up on because you love lacrosse? Or if you don't love lacrosse to the point where you really, really want to go play Division I lacrosse, then I would say play as many sports as you can, as long as you can. At the end of the day, you can play club lacrosse in the summer and you can play your spring sport, and you can still play a fall sport and a winter sport. Like, you can still do those things. You don't have to give up sports to play lacrosse year round.
And now we have another question from not as young player.
Greg, on Pizza Fridays, what's your number one go-to spot, and what is the best pie from that spot?
Oh, it's so good. My go-to pizza is a Sicilian pie, and I get it from Village Pizza here in Mamaroneck.
So what's the deal with the pizza night?
Pizza night started over the pandemic. I had never been home on weekends before, and I was finally home on weekends, and we started eating pizza on Friday nights, and now it's a thing. And now I have college coaches that'll text me pictures of their pizzas from Friday night. I have a pie sitting out there for me right now. It's mushrooms tonight.
It's time for the Mad Tech. Since we're both ward number 25, here's 25 quick questions. Ready?
Let's do it.
3 words to describe yourself.
Obsessive, compulsive, and empathetic.
What's your favorite snack?
My favorite snack is cold grapes.
What's your biggest pet peeve?
Oh my God. Not using your turn signal.
Best thing about Penn State?
Football Saturdays.
What actor would play you in a movie of your life?
Who would I cast, or who do I think they would cast?
I don't know.
Rick Moranis.
What's the last thing you bought?
The last thing I bought. It's been a while. What did I buy? What have I bought lately? I'm assuming something from Amazon.
How do I get Paul Rabel to call me back?
If you can figure that out, you let me know.
How often do you get a haircut?
Once a month.
What's the last time you wore a tie?
It was a wedding. I just don't know which one, and it was probably a couple years ago.
Who's your favorite superhero?
Spawn.
What's your favorite college course?
Neuroanatomy.
Beef, chicken, or fish?
Fish.
Early morning or late night?
Always early morning.
Cardio or weights?
Weights.
Who has been your funniest teammate?
Jerry Raganese. 100%.
What's your hype song?
My hype song changes on based on the month. But right now, let's see. What did I play? What did I play today while I was working out? Boom by POD.
Which lacrosse player might be able to beat you in an arm wrestle?
Scott Rogers.
What does your favorite t-shirt say?
My favorite t-shirt doesn't say anything on it.
What's your favorite sports movie?
Man, probably Remember the Titans.
What's the celebrity you would like to meet?
Oh, Sylvester Stallone, 100%.
Would you ever go skydiving?
I have, and it's amazing.
Do you believe in ghosts?
No.
What's the zip code at Penn State?
10. Hold on a second. 16802.
Have you ever had to change a tire?
No, I haven't.
What's the strangest place you ever slept?
I plead the fifth. No, I think I ended up having to sleep outside of my friend's apartment one time because he locked himself in and he fell asleep already.
Finally, work hard or play hard?
If you work hard, you get to play hard.
And now it's time for the turnover. Do you have a question for me?
Yes. All right. So what is your ultimate plan with this podcast, Matt?
Well, my ultimate plan is to be someone positive in the community that can help people, because my whole goal of this is to help people learn about lacrosse and share my experiences.
I love it. I think you're off to a good start, my man.
Before you leave us today, I have two questions. What is the best advice you ever received as a player, and who gave it to you?
You know, my dad inadvertently gave me a quote one time. I don't think he meant for it to sound as majestic as it did, but it had nothing to do with sports. He said, as long as you can look yourself in the mirror and be proud of who you see at the end of the day, nothing else really matters.
What advice would you give to a young player as they continue to play the sport?
Make sure you love the sport. Make sure you enjoy the sport. It's supposed to be a game. It's the medicine game. And I think we forget with the industry of lacrosse now, I think we forget that the whole point of this thing is to have a good time.
And finish this sentence. Lacrosse is?
Amazing.
And lastly, say it with me. We are?
Penn State.
Thank you, Greg. You're really fun. And I may be a little early, but happy birthday.
Happy birthday, man. Thanks a lot, brother. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on here, dude.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you, brother. All right, you go enjoy pizza night now.
Okay. Bye.
All right. Take care, buddy.
Hey, it's Matt. Go check out my website at mattonlax.com.